Yes, Roger, you
Go
want to
first?
start?
Okay. Shall I start? Okay, yeah, we're from Holonautic. Dennys and I founded the company a little bit more than 2 years ago. We started working on the company a little bit before that, evidently, before the official founding date. And we basically tried out VR for the first time with full body inverse kinematics and tracking, and were fascinated by the possibilities. And then we couldn't do anything else and think about what the future might hold with that technology. From VR, of course, also to AR, although AR was a little bit less impressive, at least during that time, with just mobile AR, which was not the thing which inspired us that much, but VR was definitely already at the level where it was overwhelming. And we have been focusing to learn and to improve in that space since the beginning. And so we spent a lot of time researching and figuring out new things, as well as implementing actually usable applications. And the most known probably is HPL, which Dennys will tell you a lot more about.
Yes, so as Roger just mentioned, yeah, I co-founded Holonautic with Roger. A little more about my background. So I have a background more in the biotech and neuroscience field. And on the side, I learned a lot about also programming, because the formation I had was engineering, and we focused on most emerging medicine, like the medical field and engineering field, and programming as well. So going into the spatial computing interaction field was an obvious choice for me after some time. And yeah, really trying to build those immersive system and try to combine physics-based interaction with hand tracking was really like something I always wanted to go for. That's why since the beginning of the year, I started working on the experimental project called Hand Physics Lab. Probably a few of you already maybe tried it or heard about it. It's really trying to use the proprioception ability of our brain to be able to trick that when you want to touch physically your virtual environment, you have that feeling you're really touching something, even though you aren't. But just by using hand tracking and accurately trying to recreate those collision and the feeling of grabbing something for real, you really have that impression that you're physically in that environment rather than just a ghost in there. And then it extended, many different interaction systems were added. It was always trying to be a little playful and not too experimental. So a little bit of both. And yeah, a lot of iteration have been added since the first release. It was on like, I think in May, and now it's still a project highly in development.
Great. So maybe Andres, we may have a very short, a few slides, who we are, and then we can just discuss about the hand tracking. I think this is the best way. So let me know if you can see the screen. Is it seen or? Okay, so yeah, we are a global academy focusing on XR upskilling, and we are usually working with professionals and companies who like to upskill their team members on different parts of VR and AR. And we actually know that there are still, even today, even though the XR world is quite small, there's still a skills gap. And we can see that from the demand growth here on engineering roles. But what we are focusing on, in addition to quantity, also the quality of skills gap that we see right now in the, especially on the enterprise side. And our role here is to close this skills gap with relevant master classes. So how we are doing that, we have remote classes, live classes, and mentorship support. We are providing VR rentals, and in the last session, we also provided headsets for the class participants, and we help the participants to create their advanced portfolio projects on XR. And all these class is being designed with the industry professionals from the industry and being actually advised by our advisory board from different companies. So every month we are coming together to to designate the immediate XR skills needed by industry today. And we have multiple programs. Especially the advanced ones are the immersive interactions and the advanced interaction design with hand tracking, which is the first one. The second one is AR remote support. It's a mobile, it's much more beginner friendly, and it is to help you create your first AR application for mobile devices. AR remote, as you know, is one of the top use cases right now. And the third one is process-based VR training simulation. This is interesting because we are, on one side, we are bringing the designers, on the other side, developers. And as we discussed with Susan, so the main idea is to actually join the forces of these two disciplines in one program. After the masterclass, these two disciplines are coming together to have a sprint, 1.5 week sprint. So they can create their first proof of concept, focusing on different use cases of VR training. And yeah, the focus today will be the hand tracking and interaction design. We have actually an expert group focusing on hand interactions. So if you haven't been there, you can join on the XRBootcamp page. I can also share this link with you. If you would like to join, please feel free to join to our Discord group. I think for now, let's directly go to the subject of like hand tracking. I don't want to make so much like marketing of XRBootcamp. You can always look at the website and share your thoughts or your interest with us. But I also would like to hear more about like what is the current skills and current need of the industry. So if you have any feedback, please feel free to share with us. So Roger, do you have the slide, or maybe in the meantime, maybe I can show very quickly the curriculum of our hand tracking class, because when we say hand tracking, it's not only the hand tracking part, it's also physics-based interactions. So let me share that as well very quickly. And let me share my screen. I hope that you can see the class. So yeah, we provided Quest 2 for everyone because it's really Quest-focused hand tracking class. At the end of the class, you are creating a project. Maybe, Dennys, would you like to share a little bit what kind of project that participants are working for 8 weeks?
Yes, I'll try to make a quick summary of what the viral project is. So yeah, it was focused to be an industrial project around hand tracking and a robotic arm that you can control using hand tracking. And during those 8 weeks, we basically start from scratch and try to build all the interaction system with hand tracking from the ground up, so the students can really like understand all the basics of the existing VR interaction system, like how to build a teleportation system, how to build a smooth locomotion system, how to build interactive buttons that you can interact with your fingers or with also laser pointer from a distance. And over all those 8 weeks, we explore many different concepts, how to build a grabbing system, how to interact with object in a kinematic manner or in a physics-based manner using joints. Also then we introduce reactive programming, inverse kinematics, and a lot of other concepts that are really useful to develop in general in VR. And at the end of the project, we really have that robotic arm that you can control in many different ways using hand tracking techniques they learn over those few weeks, using hologram UI, using buttons, using physics-based interaction, using joystick, or even using directly the hand tracking interaction using like a gesture or finger movement to really control that robotic arm lab. The main goal is that they have a whole project that has like a finished state. It's not like a collection of experiments. It's really a full project that they can build over those 8 weeks. Maybe Roger, you want to add? Also, of course, over those 8 weeks, they have assignments. So we teach them how to build the ground and the basics of the project. And then for every week, they have a setup of assignments where they can actually extend the project and build on top of what we teach them.
Yeah, and the idea is basically that we, instead of using just the framework, basically they build their own framework during those 8 weeks, from the fundamentals like locomotion system up to the interaction system, that it's easy to extend. And we try to put a little bit of focus on building like an architecture where it's built on a way that how you would start to build a framework for someone else, so that it's really easy to extend, and also for having APIs where you can then extend on it or listen to certain events and interactions, etc., that you can basically build easily more out of the project if you want to go further down the path of building with those interaction taught something else further down the line.
Great. So any questions regarding the class or XR Bootcamp before going deep into hand tracking? Okay. So
I think it's a really good idea to have an alternative to the predefined mixed reality toolkit solutions or the stuff you see from Microsoft and from Unity right now. So yeah, good idea. And I love your hand physics lab on the Quest.
Great.
Have you tried the latest update with the grip update?
No, not yet, I think. And I'm still on the Quest 1, so.
Oh, it's compatible with Quest 1 as well. So
okay,
it's.
Yeah.
So I will.
So feel free to try on SideQuest. So yeah, great. So would you like to share a few slides, Roger, or?
On what?
Would you like to share a few slides, or we can also talk about hand tracking and take some questions? Both works for us.
No, I mean, the slides you show from the class is the main thing we had, unless, you know, any specific topics. We haven't prepared anything more than that.
Okay. I mean, let's make sure that we have, if there's any questions regarding physics-based interactions or hand tracking, we are happy to hear more, actually. It's much better to have questions from the audience.
I have one. As I catch you on a Thursday evening, you're mainly focusing on VR interaction. As I said, I'm working mainly on augmented reality stuff, solving stuff, for example, on construction sites or with IoT customers, and they always have a physical representation. So we are mainly making augmented reality and introducing hand tracking and hand interaction in an augmented reality setup is quite different, because you always have the physical object. So it's, to be honest, it's more object tracking than hand tracking right now. Do you have any concepts on, or further than selecting an object?
In the AR realm, I mean, most of the things which we focus on the class, right, and which HPL is focusing on cannot be used because you see your physical hand. And I think none of the headsets now allow you to somehow like mask in a filter, like, you know, we have in those Instagrams for face filters, to mask your real hands and do like some virtual hands, which you could use in augmented reality. So all of the tricks with proprioception and many of the other things we use cannot be used directly in AR due to the reality of your real hands.
But especially remote grabbing of objects would be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, also that there's, of course, I don't know how, because we still didn't get the HoloLens yet. And I was wondering if you could tell, like, do you have currently the HoloLens or Magic Leap, or which device are you using?
We had two HoloLens 2, two HoloLens 1. We had a Magic Leap, never used it for anything apart from playing with it. And we have the HoloLens 2 since about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So
what is very interesting, because we couldn't test, like from the videos and what Jules Schwartz told us about it, there's some latency between where your hand is and where the device thinks your hand is.
You have a remote pointer like yours, but there is some latency. Yes, that's why it's hard for people who are not used to wear it. It's really hard to grab something.
Yeah. And how is the like fast movements, especially because you also have a Quest, right? How is the detection level on when you move a little bit faster, etc., on the HoloLens 2? Because we couldn't test that, because that defines a lot of what tricks you can play.
Yes,
with.
And that and minimum distance of the hand to the camera is also a problem. Yeah. You really need to reach far from your face. All close interactions is they cannot track the hand.
So the volume basically needs to be further away. You cannot have like close interactions to work consistently well.
You need to hold your hands at the full length of your arm, and then you can manipulate stuff. But if you bend your arms, you're too close for the camera. So
this space is not usable.
It's hard, yes. is this gray zone, and then it just lags. Where are you located?
Lucerne, or like Canton Lucerne.
Aha. Well, I'm in Zurich. We can, if you want, I can show you the HoloLens. So
yeah, that would actually be really great. We are eager to get our hands and experiment with it, because we always hear great things, but it's often different when you then test it and really can, you know,
of course,
see what works.
That's absolutely no problem. So
because we're very curious to see what because we know like VR is complex, right, compared to flat screen development, that I think everyone has realized, but VR has, at least you control everything, and AR is basically the next step up, where you have to incorporate the real world into it and making the interactions and the feeling of it right. And we probably didn't have a headset yet where we could actually experiment and investigate what kind of UI tricks we can play with to make AR work fully consistent, that it feels like you're really there in UI and UX departments. And so we cannot give any advice currently, because we only have ideas in our head, but we could never test them on the real device up to now.
Yeah. So let's meet sometime in the coming weeks. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a Magic Leap and a HoloLens 2. Yes.
Okay, I would be very eager to try out both of them. You just have to be very careful with the current situation, right? I guess everyone has. In Switzerland, since today, we have extremely hard restrictions, but let's find a way to still meet.
Yes.
Great. So any other questions? Andres, do you have any specific questions for our team?
No, actually not. I'm less in the part of the developing program. More as a questions like consistency. What's that? How that do that work? But yeah, I think for now, no.
Great. By the way, as Roger and Dennys mentioned, they are also having a neuroscience background. Maybe can you mention a little bit about that? How it is helpful for you while designing for VR, how you are using that background knowledge of neuroscience, especially like faking reality and other stuff.
Like us?
Well,
I'm asking too. Yeah.
Dennys, go ahead.
Well, it's all about like, it's like any UI or UX interface design. It's about combining the knowledge you already know, like how you can well place buttons or anything on an interface. And then while you iterate, while you build it, you realize, okay, it feels a lot better to it this way or this way. And with the proprioception, and I don't think there is a clear like thing you can use neuroscience for here. It's all about like designing with the mind in general, like how would you expect it to behave, and then you design the application to behave that way. And yeah, you can in VR you have that advantage that you can really fake a lot of stuff that in AR you would not be able to, because you really see the reality the way it is. You see the hands the way they are for real. When you're in VR, you really have that little gap of how to say, like the black zone, that you can really enforce the interaction to be the way you want them to be in the app, and not what the user actually is doing with the input. For example, if you want to force the hand to go at a specific location when you grab something like a doorknob, even if the hand is not there for real, I think they also did many research and experience on that for games like Half-Life Alyx. Like, you really, if you want to open a door, you force the hands. As soon as you do a grasping movement close enough to the door handle, the doorknob of the door, it will enforce the hand to do there. It will do the movement automatically and open the door, even though you didn't do it by yourself, do the whole movement, but basically by guessing what the user is willing to be, you can then design the interaction to be going this way. So it's like a non-event. You really try to help the user as much as you can by doing what you think he will expect to do when doing a specific interaction. And in VR, you can really fake everything because you don't see your real hands. You really can, like, over it, add that layer of helping the user do what he is willing to do indirectly, even though if he doesn't do it by himself. That's really how we can actually trick the brain in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I know that your first-hand physics lab, what was the small guy that is playing in your hand? What are you calling?
Like,
which one?
He has another name. He's like the hero of holoception.
Okay, hero. So like the mascot, let's say, the mascot of holoception. I mean, the tested editor Norman Chan mentioned that when you are holding him and then with your finger, and then it comes to go on top of your hand, and you are really feeling as if it is there, even though there's no like even haptics there in a sense from a control or a vibration. So it's quite interesting that how actually your visual perception can affect your touch senses.
Yeah, and that's a really cool thing. It works with actually all senses. That's actually how we can train a dog when he hears specific sounds, and then you give him food when he does something great, and then he will associate that specific sounds to something else, even though that something else will not be there anymore. We can do the same or use those tricks as well. When you touch an object with your fingers and you look at it at the same time, and you see, okay, at that moment, my finger is touching the object, I will expect that I have a haptic feedback feeling. So if we do the same in VR and you only see that you touch an object and you see your finger basically bending backward, your brain will be expecting that you have some kind of touch feeling, even though you don't have any. But in some way, your brain will recreate it for you, or at least you will have some kind of ghosty feeling of touching something. And any of those like associative, like different property or sensing of the brain we can play with to recreate those interactions, or like fake them to recreate a better immersive experience.
Yeah, and the question is, of course, how long it lasts, right? You can trick the brain. Like if you ever were in a train and the other train was moving, you have a hard time to determine, are you the one moving or is the other train moving? Because basically your brain doesn't really sense that sufficiently to determine what happens, because you have a sensor system and you're like, you're a biological machine where you get sensor information and then the brain evaluates in real time how to interpret that sensor information. It doesn't need to be always the same result. It's based on situation, especially if you're already frightened or create an environment where the user is shocked, then it will interpret it even in a different way than when he's calm, etc. So you can play to a certain degree with those parameters. And of course, the problem is that maybe at some point the user gets used to it and he doesn't feel the fake haptic feedback because his brain got used that there is none. And we haven't done any studies like if Norman Chan still would feel that sensation when he tries it today, or if that goes away over time. But definitely you can fake a lot of things and induce certain motions and feelings in the user because the visual sense we have developed so strong and pay so much attention to it that overcharges many other regions of signal inputs which you have in the brain. But it's probably also different on each user. But at least from now, everyone seems to be in favor of having physics, visual feedback that your finger bends and it feels quite realistic, even though there's no haptic feedback and your real finger actually doesn't bend. Somehow it feels more satisfying to your brain. It feels more at ease when he sees the physical reactions to your virtual hands than when they go through things, because that feels apparently even worse than something which not happens in the real world with the, you know, with the sensory feedback which you have from the finger compared to what you expect to happen in your brain from the real world.
Definitely. Yeah, great. So any other questions?
Kind of illusion.
Yeah.
And
I think you can with this technology you can train. It's combined to many research or studies in neurology and psychology. The research you are doing.
No, I mean, also we do basically UI and UX research, and we haven't expanded further into, like, you know, the medical field, but we are looking very closely at certain opportunities we currently have to help it also in terms of therapy, etc. That's also an area of interest to us, where we can help with those interactions to maybe help others which have certain symptoms, phantom limb symptoms, other things which exist, but we're only a small team, right? We have to always focus like on the next thing ahead, but that area is definitely of interest to us.
Yeah, it can help also athletes to build muscles, etc. Because when your brain will understand that you are touching something, so you can change the weight to build the muscle, etc. So I think it's
that would actually be very interesting to have a study on that, because I think there was a study, but actually I could never find the source. I only heard someone told me that someone told him that there was a study on footballers, like one team was training for real, and I have never found the source, and the other team was actually only training, you know, mentally.
Virtual, yeah.
Yeah, and they both had effects, maybe not as pronounced, but they both had physical effects, and then, you know, the third group had no training at all, and there was actually significant differences between the three groups. If it's true, I don't know. I have never found the source study. I would love to know if that actually is true, if that's just a story from the internet.
It's true. No, it's true. I saw even the video with an athlete who wears the mask, and I think the video was he was running. So all his body reacts like he was in the track, you know.
Okay.
So I will look for the video and I will share it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And so if we have that opportunity to do that, I would be really interested how effective it is. Maybe then we don't
even Jean-Philippe with the association, they had the opportunity to work on some peoples with physical issues, using some films, etc., and to control and to see how their bodies react, and it was amazing. So he can probably share something of those results later.
That would be very interesting. I wish we could do a study, like, you know, maybe we don't even need to swing our hands like in Beat Saber to train, but actually just you know, mentally at least, or maybe it just helps. I wonder also if, you know, audible feedback and from visuals, but also audible feedback, etc., like sweating and you know, breathing, if that can have any significant impact to the brain to believe he's really working out, even if you're physically or not. But yeah, we didn't.
Metaphysics said a lot about this, the role of the subconscious and mind. So you can find a lot of studies on this thematic. It will be interesting to include those factors in your research. Yeah.
Again, we are not purely research, right? We're more like, we invest a lot of figuring stuff out, but then build products, because we have to. It's that what excites us. We were in the research, but we distinctly decided to go for creating a company to learn from the research and have the research mindset, but then build products for people to enjoy, because they cannot just do research papers. At least up to now, we focused more on that part. But yeah, collaborating with someone which is in the research field is always interesting to us, of course. Where we can maybe help or like help design an application, that would always be of interest to us.
Yeah. Dennys, if you have something to add.
So sorry, I had to go for the other session because there's another session that we will attend. It will start soon in the healthcare.